My name is Scott Varner, and we are here with Dustin Ray from Huntress. Dustin, why don't you introduce yourself for us?
Of course, hey, I'm happy to be here and discuss win-loss. I'm Dustin Ray. I'm the head of competitive and market intelligence at Huntress. I've been in win-loss for many years now, and I'm a big proponent of what needs to happen with win-loss.
Yeah, we've got some awesome nuggets from Huntress' program to dig into. But first, I think we would benefit from hearing about your experience in win-loss analysis.
Yeah, so my experience in win-loss analysis started out by trying to do it internally, right? So one of the major issues that we'd run into is time. And you were trying to recruit people to do all the interviews and then trying to identify who you should be talking to and doing all of these things. That it was very time consuming. And it typically resulted in getting just a snapshot in time, right? So you would do it maybe once or twice a year and you would try to look too far back in time. So what would happen is it was great, but it really limited the effectiveness of what win-loss was. I really wanted to drive forward with the program that you could establish a baseline and measure yourself against that baseline as you move forward in the program, and also to move it away from doing it internally. Because when you do win-loss internally, it's kind of hard to call somebody who's turned you down, right? And are they going to listen to you? There's some issues that go along with that.
And Dustin, as we talked about win-loss, you've had a lot of great insight about how win-loss helps deliver better competitive intelligence. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I'll be upfront. You can't do competitive intelligence without win-loss. There's three very, very important pieces that you have to do competitive intelligence. One is you have to have a single source of truth. You have to be able to collect it somewhere and where you can analyze it and then distribute it to everybody. Right? Two is you have to have that. You have to be able to have sources you can pull data from internally. You have to establish those relationships. You have to be able to talk to experts in the industry, experts in the market. Right? But the third thing is you have to talk to your prospects and partners and customers, right? You have to have that conversation. You have to understand what's driving them to buy. What are their pain points? Why did they select you over somebody else, or the other way around? Why did they select somebody else over you? What's really driving them in their decision-making process? And without understanding that, you're going to relegate competitive intelligence to being like a super Googler or an AI prompt master, right? So without win-loss, you don't have competitive intelligence.
Yeah, you're not just getting general market intelligence, you're getting deep customer understanding. With recognizing their experience starts well before they're your customer. Those are three great principles. Curious, what are some examples you've seen at Huntress specifically as you've matured this win-loss program?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So when we launched the win-loss program, we brought in a third party. We used closed, right? So anyway, one thing that we did is like literally day 2 when I started, the contract was signed. And we started off with like 60 interviews and we started rolling it out and wanted to establish that baseline. But a couple of things that we learned immediately, and we didn't really understand wholly, there was a handful of things that we learned we were able to implement that affected both product, sales, and marketing, right? So on one of the product ones, we realized that, hey, we're losing because we have prospects that don't want to tell us to take action on their behalf. They want us just to take action. And so with a very simple update to our program, to our solution, we were able to implement a simple process for them to say, hey, if something happens, take it for us. Or if they don't want us to take action, they can say, no, we still want to know beforehand. So that was a simple, easy thing to overcome on one of our major loss reasons. So that really affected what product was doing. It drove what product was doing. And another one on the sales side, a lot of our competitors have, they have our solution, but they also have another one that is heavily relied upon. And we use another one that everybody has access to, and it's almost on every operating machine out there. And we just use that one. We do why develop our own? But the problem is what we found out is a lot of people didn't necessarily trust that, or they didn't understand why. So they would always look and go like, well, if I have to buy you and then plus another solution, is this a good deal? So we learned that from the feedback that was coming in. So this is really within the first few months I was at Huntress, right? And it was like, oh, that's very interesting. So we went to sales, went with sales enablement. We created a training plan, went through of how they pitched that and how it was better off for our customers and partners and prospects. And it immediately started. We saw a massive increase in win rates coming from that, right? So that's one way we affected sales. And another one was a marketing one. We'd launched a program and, a new solution, a new capability, right? But when we named it, we caused some confusion. So Huntress doesn't sell into we're in the cybersecurity space. We don't sell into it like the normal competitors and vendors in the field. Most of them sell, okay, here's the technology, then here's the service. Well, at Huntress, one of our major differentiators is those are together. You can't separate them. But we named a product where it confused our buyers. They thought they had to buy two products to get the capabilities of one of them. And it just really caused confusion. So people were looking, wow, we can't afford to buy both of these. So when we started hearing that back in these win-loss interviews and surveys that came back, we're like, oh, well, that's an easy change. Marketing went through and said, what's going to resonate? And came up with the name change, right? And we were able to, and then after that happened, we were able to get some feedback and other ones that started clearing and unmuddying the water for our buyers. So that was a major win there. And another one was for our service that we had. We found out that a lot of our partners and customers didn't like the fact that they only had limited means at which to contact our security operations center. And we're like, okay, so we need to give them more avenues to get a hold of them. Because look, if they have to talk to our operations center, it means it's probably their business's worst day. It means something's happened, right? They've been ransomwared or they've lost access to their systems or something major has happened. So we're like, okay, let's give them multiple avenues to do that. And all of this was learned through win-loss analysis in our first 90 days. So, I mean, it had an immediate impact.
Yeah, which is incredible. You just shared so many high impact examples, and you said that happened in just 90 days. I see some people come into win-loss and they almost treat it like a project that they're going to do once. And you've talked about improving win rate. That's been happening continuously. How have you been able to make win-loss a continuous part of Huntress?
Yeah, well, so one of it is, like I said, I learned my lesson early on doing win-loss for many years, that if you did the snapshot in time, by the time you got the information back, right, it may be a little long in the tooth and it was harder to understand really what you needed to do. But by doing it continuously and understanding how it's changing, well, how are decision drivers changing, how are different things changing, it just made sense, right? We do that on everything else. We track everything else in that manner. Why would we not do win-loss that way? Why would we not have a standard program to talk to our prospects, right? We have standard programs to talk to everybody else in the world. Why not our prospects? It just makes sense. And by doing that, you're going to get the feedback you need. You're going to have a lot earlier runway to address problems of why you're losing. Yeah. So you're able to really get into driving change in your organization. And once again, I see a lot of programs fail because one, they treat it as a snapshot in time, or they're just trying to do it for one functional area. And so then you miss the power of it. So once again, if you can design it to what your company's trying to do and to learn about your buyers and why they're really buying it, it can become very effective very fast.
Yeah, that's powerful. Instead of just looking at one snapshot, you're recognizing we can have a pulse. We can have a continuous weather vane showing us directionally where are we going as things shift. Yeah. I think another area I see people often get stuck is getting insight is one thing, driving change is another. Do you have any tips for how you have been able to take that intelligence and make change happen?
Yeah, I think first of all is you have to make it available, right? You have to make sure that your organization knows it's there and that they have access to it. But you have to take the next step. A lot of times saying, hey, here's a link, go look at it. Come on, none of us click on those. I'm behind 6,000 emails in my inbox, right? So anyway, what's the next step to that is you have to teach the organization how to use it. So that's first of all is like give them access, teach them how to use it, right? Give them the information, the analysis they need. But then lastly, you have to really drive it down to get them involved in the process, find out what they're running into, get them connected and actually talk to the interviewers. Hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're doing so you can understand us. And then you can adjust your conversation guide or your interview guide based off of what we're really seeing, what we need to find out in the business that are going to drive the major decisions that each of these functional areas have to do. So if you tie it back to the goals and to what we're trying to accomplish, they're going to use it. Why would they not, right? It just makes sense. Like, okay, we're going to get the answers we need for the decisions we have to make.
Yeah, I think sometimes I see people have the instinct, especially in competitive intelligence, that I need to have all of the answers and I need to give the answers to people. But your advice of just giving access has recognized, man, if I'm giving access to different people, they'll find answers that I might have missed. They'll be able to use this information to see things that they need to see.
Yeah, there is a lot of fear, and a lot of that too is where we deal with it because we're dealing with a very changing environment in competitive intelligence. So a lot of people like myself tend to be a little bit like, oh no, I got to be careful because I don't want to get in trouble, right? And a lot of that, it could be the case, it may not be the case, but it's a perceived thing from people in my roles, right? But what I've learned is one is the more open it is, the better you can actually protect yourself. But two is if they have access to the data, what I've found out is they're going to look and say, oh, there's so much here, I need help understanding this. So then me rather deciding what information to dole out, right? I'm now working with them to understand what we need to learn and how we get the information and how we use it. So then I become a partner with them. And I actually add value rather than just the data steward. We don't need data stewards. What we need is people to help them understand how to use it effectively, how to avoid the pitfalls, and how to adjust what we collect next. And by doing that, it actually gets you ingrained with them. They're not going to just take it and run and never talk to you. I've learned that many times in adopting different data sources or different tools is you increase access, you're going to increase people working with you.
Well, I know one of the amazing things at Huntress is you've collected all of this insight is the relationship you built with sales and how much they want win-loss. Could you tell the story about what has happened there and how you've gotten sales involved in win-loss?
Yeah, so one is getting the buy-in that I needed, right? So when we moved in there, I have a leadership that's really keen on learning. And we have a culture at Huntress too that's very open and transparent. So what we started collecting these things. The sales leadership and revenue ops leadership said, you can survey or interview anybody you want on any closed deal. We don't care, right? And they really like that. So here's what's interesting. The first 10, there was 2 more that we brought back into the pipeline to close deals on that were pretty significant. So you automatically, as soon as you help them win business, you win. But that wasn't the main thing that actually drove and helped them. That just established our trust with them, right? But what really drove it was sales managers learned quickly that they could use the interviews and surveys because we have a platform for our win-loss, right? It's not just a report, a PowerPoint deck shoved over. There's a platform. They can go in there and look at all their sellers, look at all the interviews and surveys they have against them. They can identify trends going like, oh, I see seller A, right? So he's really good at these things and he's winning when the conversation's based around this. But when this objection comes up, he's really struggling, or she's really good at closing these kind of people in these industries, but really struggles maybe with doctors or something, right? So anyway, that's something that it comes down to is they can then be coached and see how it comes along. And then when you put that with, hey, we can listen to their gong calls, we can look at their CRM notes, that manager can help them be successful. And it has increased the effectiveness of our sale, increased our average deal size, and shortened our deal cycle.
Yeah, by taking the closed win-loss interviews and combining it with Gong, you can take the data points about what happened when sales was in the room and combine that with how did the buyer feel after the fact? Yeah. And let's use that for better coaching.
Exactly. So it's used heavily in coaching. And then 2 is obviously with sales enablement. We're then able to use that and say, okay, maybe something's not falling how we thought it was. Maybe it's being misinterpreted. And then we can go through, maybe we need to change our positioning or our messaging a little bit and help train our sales in how to address these or what we should really be attacking on. Where should we be very aggressive and where should we pull back because it's not having the effect we want?
With so many key learnings from win-loss, what advice would you share to somebody that is now trying to start a win-loss program of their own?
Yeah, I would say especially if you're in a competitive intelligence role or a product marketing role is, first of all, is you need to put together and tell the organization what they're going to get. But then second is trying to start it on your own is going to be very difficult. Yes, you probably still want to do some interviews yourself, but you're not going to be able to do what somebody else outside of an organization can do for you. So put together what they're going to get and what you can bring them. And then from there is establish it and get it going quickly, right? But you have to make sure when you do this, you set up that you're addressing those major goals that each of these different functional areas want to accomplish. Don't just hyper-focus on one area. Don't hyper-focus on sales or product or marketing. Pull them together and see what they need because interesting enough, all those things are tied. And a lot of the things that you get back in your win-loss is going to affect all 3 of them. It's going to change how we have to sell. It's going to change how marketing has to do our positioning. And it's going to drive what product has to. So in order to really implement this is get with them, show them what you can bring, get what they're worried about, what keeps them up, and get out there and have your win-loss program start addressing these and collecting this information and get it in front of them as soon as possible. Don't make it take so long because it'll be water under the bridge and then it's not going to help you as much.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. So can't thank you enough for being with us for this masterclass in why you can't have competitive intelligence without good win-loss.
Exactly. I hope that everybody can learn from that. And I'm always open to talk to anybody about this. So.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, dear viewer.